Hello, everyone. My name is Lance Baraka, and I'm with my partner, Bob Marietta, and we're with Cap Intro Solutions. We're here today to discuss how Cap Intro Solutions can help emerging managers like yourself. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Lance. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
So, Bob, what is Cap Intro Solutions and the people behind it?
In its most simplest form, Cap Interest Solutions is an outsourced capital introduction team, very similar to what you might find at one of the bulge bracket prime brokers, which you may even be a client of. And a lot of our experience comes from the prime brokerage space. So that's why our model really kind of replicates what you would find in the PB space. So, for example, members of the team, Cap Interest Solutions was founded probably about somewhere between 14, 15 years ago by Dan Lancelotti. He was the first and former global head of capital introduction at Citigroup. And he ran that group for about 11 years and then left to start Cap Intro Solutions. And he built some proprietary software that we use today. And for lack of a better term, it's almost like a match.com that matches up emerging managers with investors. Dan is a 40-year veteran of the space and the industry, probably doing Cap Intro for about the last 25 years or so. Paul Abbas here heads up our investment outreach team. Paul also is a 40-year veteran in the industry and has worked in the past at JP Morgan and Gabelli. For myself, I've spent over 20 years in prime brokerage at UBS, Karen Fitzgerald, and TradeStation. I would say the team is pretty experienced. I don't want to say old. I'm going to say experienced and pedigreed. So that's really who we are and what we do, outsource capital introduction. One thing I did want to make a point, though, Lance, we are not third-party marketers currently. We do not sell funds. We really gauge ourselves and our metrics on how many introductions are we making out to investors for our managers and how many meetings we can secure.
So it's really, to say that Cap Intro Solutions being around 14, 15 years has built up the credibility within the investor communities, built their trust, and it allows you guys to go out to these investors and set up meetings with the managers.
Absolutely, yes. And it's particularly, as we get further into our conversation, you'll see we have two levels of service: institutional, where we're really talking to family offices, endowments, pensions, foundations, the larger institutions. We also recently have begun a high net worth product for those more retail or more maybe managers that are sub 10 million AUM that are really going to be playing in the high net worth space. But particularly on the institutional side of the business, we've got over 1,500 relationships, and these are long-standing, long-term relationships. We know these guys for probably anywhere 10, 15, 20 years. So, that gives our managers a level of comfort that we have relationships with our investors. And also it helps that our investors know us. They know that, we're familiar with what the mandates are, and we are going to, if we're going to introduce a manager, it's going to be something that they're looking for.
No, that's great. And obviously, as an emerging manager or even established manager, there are many challenges in trying to raise capital or raise assets, as you know. So what does CIS or how does CIS kind of solve these challenges for emerging managers out there?
Yeah, this is probably the biggest question that the managers want to have answered, right? And we understand it, particularly, we're going to be helping for the most part those emerging early stage type managers, right? And many of the managers listening to this call today, I'm going to guess maybe one person shops, maybe one or two person shop, right? And, the bandwidth then becomes an issue, right? Because, when you think about it as a fund manager, you really got two primary jobs, right? Generate performance and raise capital. And it's very hard to do both. So what we like to do is say, hey, listen, you focus on running your portfolio, generate those returns that'll be attractive to investors. And we'll go out and we'll do the hunting and searching and find those investors that are interested in your strategy. So I commonly use, and anybody who's been on a call with me, here's my golf analogy. And Lance, I'm sure you're familiar with it too, but we do the, for you golfers out there, we'll do the tee to green work for you, right? You putt, you drive for show, you putt for dough. We are going to put you on the green so you can putt for investor dough. And as we try to filter out all that noise, do all that grunt work, because it is a lot, outreach, follow up, et cetera. There's a lot that goes into it, and if you're a one person shop, it can become overwhelming. So we want you to focus on the things that you probably know best, which is going to be your strategy and generating your performance.
Right, which is great. And you guys really simplify the process, add clarity to it, and put the manager in the best position, as you mentioned.
Exactly. You want these guys to be you want our managers to be as successful as they can be. So, if we can put them in the best spot, then they have the best chance to be successful.
Right. And as you know, with the asset managers or the managers having challenges in the asset raising space, investors as well. It's tough for them to try to find these undiscovered or emerging managers. And so, how does CIS kind of help the investors as well? Really, find this challenge or help with the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially where we see this really prevalent is in the institutional space, right? We've got those long-term relationships. We check in with our investors, probably 2 or 3 times a year. So there's a lot of contact. We make a lot of phone calls, a lot of electronic communication, but we stay on top of what the mandates are for our institutional investors. So, and it's hard, right? Even if you're sitting as, let's say, I'm investing a family office's money, I have so many managers coming at me every day. It's very hard in that seat to try to find those quality managers. So, over the years, and again, we'll go back to that trust factor, and not only do our managers trust that we know our investors and what they're looking for, investors do the same, right? So if they tell us, all we ask our investors to do, they're not paying clients to the firm, but we ask them to invest, 2 or 3 times a year, give us 20, 30 minutes, tell us what you're looking for, what's interesting in the market. And in that case, we can come back to them with quality managers. So we're actually helping, not only are we helping our clients who are our managers, but we're going to be helping our investors find quality managers, because we're almost going out, hunting and searching for them. And they always want to hear from quality managers. Now, they trust us because we know what they're looking for. And we absolutely cannot put a square peg in a round hole. So if they tell us they're looking for a merger arb client, and we come back with long short equity TMT, they might say, hey, I just spent 30 minutes telling you what I'm looking for. This isn't it. Don't call me again in 6 months. And that is something we cannot do. We need to keep those lines of communication with our investors open. So we're very, very conscious about matching up appropriately and only introducing suitable managers to those investors.
Yeah, that's great. So you make the process really efficient. It's not wasting both the asset manager's time or the investor's time. And then you also help, the manager stand out, in front of that specific investor that's looking for that specific strategy. If I'm a long short manager or just a manager in general, emerging manager, why can't I just go out and buy a database and start calling all these investors and doing all his work? Is it that easy, Bob? It can't.
No, it's
be,
not.
right?
I was going to say you can if you want to. Go right ahead. The one thing I would say is that it's a lot of work. You can. There are databases out there, and there's a lot of investor names out there. You may run into some stale ones, but the point being is, again, as a 1 or 2 person shop, you've only got so much bandwidth, and if you actually do this type of work and try to perform this outreach, you'll realize it's not easy, and you've got to really be diligent. It's almost a full-time job. It is a full-time job. Cap raising is a full-time job, so you've got to basically do a tremendous amount of outreach, and the response is probably going to be anywhere what we see in statistics, 10, 15, 20% range. That's a lot of outreach for a little bit, and now you have to a little bit of a response, but then you've got to follow up. right? And that's where we find the biggest breakdown becomes is the follow up. We've talked to managers that, hey, yeah, I contacted that guy 6 months ago and never got back in touch with him. It's difficult, right? So we get it. So could you buy a database? 100%. Price wise, they probably cost, from the ones I've seen, cost more than our service. So in a sense, we say, hey, we're going to be less expensive and we'll do all that grunt work and that heavy lifting, because otherwise you got to do it yourself, right? You've got to do the outreach, the follow up. It's a lot. I mean, you can try it, but we've had a lot of managers come back to us and say, hey, I tried the other way and I just couldn't get ahead of it. I want you guys to do it. And again, this is all we do. Like particularly a prime broker, cap intro is one part of their service to you. This is all we do is capital introduction. So, we're constantly contacting investors all day long. So, I think, our efficiency rates will probably be higher because of that. And, if you're going to get that expertise and that long-term experience, we've got over 100 years of experience in relationships at our firm, you could tap into that. And outsourcing is really, many people have found it to be a much more effective and lower cost initiative to get into the space. So we think it's attractive.
Like you said, cap intro or raising assets, it's a relationship business. You, Dan, Paul have built and have, like you mentioned, 100 years experience. So these investors, these institutional investors are going to answer your phone. And get back to you, which is more important than just sitting there and buying a database and just with a straight cold call, on that. So that's a great point.
Well, that is a great point that you just made, is that, to be honest with you, if someone from Paul's team or Paul Labasia or Dan Lancelotti reaches out to an institutional investor, trust me, you send emails, you leave voicemail, you leave a lot of voicemails, but if an investor who's been helped by Cap Intro Solution in the past, that has been shown only quality managers, a lot of times managers reach out cold, email and phone calls, leave voicemails and never hear back. That does happen occasionally, even to us, right? But we're more likely, given our history and track record with these investors, to get a return email, to get a return phone call, and get some type of response. So we've got managers who, when we've tried to introduce them to a particular investor, they've said, hey, don't bother, I've already spoken to them. And our response is usually, well, when did you talk to them? And they're like, oh, I reached out 3 years ago. Well, first off, a lot has changed in 3 years. And secondly, let us use our relationships to, maybe that door is still a little ajar. Let us kick it open for you and maybe get you back in front of them. Something could have changed too. Just because you talked to an investor, 3 years ago, hey, their mandate may have changed. Your strategy may have changed. Your performance may have really improved. There's something that we can find a common thread to get that conversation going again with that potential investor. And that happens quite a bit.
Oh, that's great. Now I realize Capital Intro Solutions is not a third-party marketer, as you mentioned, in the beginning. But if I needed help, just looking at, in my marketing deck, if I needed help, kind of in coaching, what are the services with your guys' experience that you can help, a manager with?
Yeah, I mean, and great question, because there's a couple ways I can answer that. One is we offer our clients an advisory service run by Dan Lancelotti. Again, Dan's very experienced in the space. And what he'll do is he sets up, he has weekly group meetings that are open to all clients. We call them office hours, which has really spurred a lot of camaraderie, a great response from people. And it's just an open forum for Q&A. And, Dan is 40 years experience in the industry, 25 years in Cap Intro. He's a wealth of knowledge, and people love speaking with him, and he loves helping people. So the office hours has been a great concept that he came up with. And again, it's just an open Q&A once a week, and no set agenda, and it's just peppered down with questions, and he'll answer them. And that really spurs a lot of conversation, off of that. And you'd be surprised the interaction we get. But additionally, Dan also offers monthly one-on-ones with our clients, and basically what they do is, he'll review the marketing materials and make suggestions. Again, we're not marketing material experts, but we're happy to help. We also know professionals in the space if you really do need that help that we can pass you along to. Dan also will go through your pitch and your presentation, and give you some, he'll do mock presentation with you, and as part of the one-on-ones, and he will offer some constructive criticism as well. So there's a lot of ways that we can help those managers that are maybe one-man shops and say, hey, I haven't presented. I'm really worried. How do I do this? Look at my materials, listen to my pitch, help me out. The only thing we really can't do currently is sell the fund, right? Because we're cap intro. Our firm is not licensed to sell. That's why we do not participate in sales calls. Because we could, if we're on a line in a virtual call, we could be construed as selling, and we don't want to cross that solicitation line. But Dan and his advisory sessions, group and one-on-one, will be as helpful as possible to get you ready to go. Now, one thing I will add is that we are in the process of trying to add third-party marketing or placement agency type services, not as a standalone business, but almost as an add-on or to our cap intro service. So we found some managers have said, hey, I know my strategy, but I can't sell it. Right. And some managers tell us, hey, I'm the best salesperson in the world. I know my strategy better than anybody. I don't need anybody to sell it. For that type of person, cap intro works fantastic, right? Because we're going to connect you and then you sell it. And the nice thing about capital introduction, if you can sell your firm, your fund, and you get an allocation, you keep it all. We're a flat fee-based service. We don't take a commission. In a third-party market space, there's always going to be some type of commission paid for any assets raised. So we are going to add that for guys who basically say, hey, I struggle with presenting. I can't sell my own fund. Do you have marketers? We are in the process of adding that. Hopefully later this fall, we'll have that as an add-on feature, and we'll have some marketers that can help, use the information we produce on the cap intro side to help those managers, then sell their fund in the marketplace.
That's great. Well, listen, this is a great high-level overview of cap intro solutions. Anyone listening in, really appreciate your time, and wanted to thank Steve and the team over at Ritchie May. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the team at Ritchie May, and they can get in contact with us. And we look forward to speaking to each and every one of you. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.